Way too early Big Ten hoops title odds are coming out, and this one has the Illini fifth. Behind who? Locked On Illini. Let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. My name is Andrej Verma, your host here at Locked On Illini, where I continue to provide you coverage daily. That's right, every single day of the orange and blue. All this information is absolutely free. The only thing I ask for is if you can hit that like button or leave a comment letting me know what you think of this show, the show in general. I always love to hear your guys' feedback. Speaking of feedback, earlier today, I came across some Big Ten hoops title odds, which had me a little surprised with where Illinois was standing. But before I get to that, I wanted to try to not be so biased when it comes to my Illini love. So I wanted to bring on a guest you will all be familiar with, though it's been a little while since he's been on Locked On Illini. JR, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me here. Listen, Sonny, I lost in mini golf this weekend when I was on vacation, and I just got to take it out. I got to take out the anger. So what better way to do it than talk about some Big Ten basketball odds that are underrating the Illini?
Yeah, I completely agree. So let's just start off. Big Ten hoops title odds, they had Purdue as number one and Michigan number two. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. I think that's kind of pretty much the consensus. Not that I necessarily agree with it, but I'm not going to sit here and argue those two. Then at number three comes in the Buckeyes. The Ohio State Buckeyes come in at number three at plus 525. Now, granted, look, I'm in college football mode right now. Big Ten Media Days is just a couple weeks away. So now's around the time where I'm trying to learn about each of the Big Ten football teams. So I'm not quite there on my basketball research and background, research. But you cover the entire Big Ten. You cover football, you cover basketball. So you were the guy I thought of immediately about having on for this particular episode. Ohio State at three, I think, how do I phrase this nicely? I was surprised by it. Should I be?
Well, it depends on how you look at the team, right? And it depends on how you look at the Big Ten overall. The odds seem to be having a bit of an antiquated view of the Big Ten than what I would normally look at it as. That probably didn't make any sense. They're kind of looking at it from the old ways, right? Oh, this team brought back experience. They brought back players. They're going to have a low post presence. I don't know if we need to care about the low post presence and stuff like that nearly as much as we used to. We're looking at teams that are doing a much better job of getting quality guards, quality ball handlers, and quality, defenders down low, but they're not necessarily looking for a star player down low on the block who's going to create for their offense and be kind of that go-to guy. Ohio State brought back three of their four best players from last year. The only problem was that those four best players we're not all Big Ten caliber type of players, right? Bruce Thornton, very good player, second team, all Big Ten. I think he could have gone second or third team with him. Junie Mobley, you're banking on a lot of improvement from him. He has a wonderful stroke, does a great job, but you're banking on a lot of improvement for his game. Devin Royal, you're looking at somebody that needs to, improve in his spot on the floor because he's kind of a smaller player who's going to play the four. But Illinois, I don't think has so many of those issues. Illinois does have some issues with possibly some defense and stuff, but you're also bringing in veteran players who I don't see why they would be fifth in the Big Ten odds. If you're asking me for a sleeper for a team that could win the Big Ten that's outside of the top 3 or 4, I know it'd be kind of hard, or somebody that has 4-digit odds or something like that. Illinois is the first one I'm going to because I think this roster is built well. They might not come out of the gate as quickly as some other teams, but I think it's a team that has what is needed to win the Big Ten this season.
Yeah, to round out the top 5 for the viewers and listeners, they had UCLA at number 4 and Illinois at number 5. I guess the shock for me comes with Ohio State is I don't know yet if I believe in Jake Diebler to all of a sudden, return. I think you kind of confirmed it. Good, but not necessarily exceptional talent, and lift them to a point where they're going to be fighting for potentially a Big Ten title in what I consider to be one of the best conferences in college basketball next season. I saw enough from Dusty May from Michigan to know that he's a pretty good coach. They've assorted a lot of talent together. Now, how it's going to fit, we can discuss a little bit later in the second segment. But Jake Diebler, to me, just seems to like, even the Ohio State fan base, of which some of my viewers know. I'm married into an Ohio State family, so I know what the vibe usually is with that crowd as well. I wouldn't say they're necessarily sold on the guy, and so for me to lift Ohio State to a third when it comes to overall conference ranking, that's showing a lot of confidence in Jake Diebler, where I don't know if it's exactly warranted yet.
To be honest with you, Sonny, I really don't pay much attention to what the Ohio State fan base says, especially in basketball, because at this point, they just put all of whatever is in football and say that should be what basketball is. Guys, it's two completely different sports. The sports are played completely different ways. Like, you can't just – I won't get into it. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, I totally agree with a lot of your assessment on Jake Diebler. Jake Diebler has done a really good job of winning some big games, right? He's 2-0 against Matt Painter. He's 1-1 against Tom Izzo. Those are two of the best coaches in all of college basketball, both in terms of legacy and in terms of right now. And Jake Diebler has a 3-1 record against them. The problem is he's losing games like Northwestern last year where they're getting blown out. Chris Collins is a fantastic coach, but that was an injury-riddled team in Northwestern. They had no business losing to, especially when you're fighting for a tournament bid. You're also losing to Iowa in the Big Ten tournament, an Iowa team that was, they were on the verge of firing Fran McCaffrey. He was dead man walking at that point. Like, it was just mind-boggling at times. And so what you need from Jake Diebler is consistency. And unfortunately, the way he's coaching, where he's telling his guys, hey, be fearless, leave nothing out there on the court and do everything. It all sounds great, but it doesn't lead to consistency. You need a team that is consistently going to go out there, play well. You have a bad shooting night, it happens. Get out there the next night and play better and get back to what you were doing before. Jake Diebler does that to some extent, but he really needs to improve in that way. If you're going to have Ohio State top 3 in the Big Ten in terms of Big Ten title odds, you're banking on a lot of improvement, not only from this team, but from this coaching staff as well.
Before we take a look at the entire conference, of those 5, Purdue, Michigan, Ohio State, UCLA, Illinois, would you swap any of those out, or is that pretty much your consensus top 5 as well?
I'd swap Ohio State and Illinois. I think Ohio State has enough returning talent to be top 5. I don't completely hate that they're getting, some recognition. Might sound like it with the way I'm talking about them a little bit, but I think that they do bring back some good players, and Jake Diebler has proven himself in some ways. It's just you're banking on the improvement, and I think a 5th spot, maybe a 6th spot would be better, but I also I look at those teams below them, and I don't know if you're going to list them off, but I don't necessarily love any team that's behind Ohio State if they were 5th either.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll talk about that in the next segment. I have Illinois at number 2. Again, it's the offseason. Maybe I'm just drinking the orange and blue Kool-Aid, but assuming, everything goes well with Petrovic and, Mirkovic is on campus now, I think by the time the season ends, this team's going to be, playing well together, especially with the returning players like Boswell and Tommy Ivasic. We don't quite know what the situation is with Ty Rodgers right now, but, let's just say in a perfect scenario, he is able to get healthy by the end of the year. I like where Illinois stands, but there's another team that I would probably put in the top 5 in place of Ohio State, and we'll talk about that right after this. Have you ever decided at the last minute that you want to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and suddenly you realize you want to be in the stands? That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. I'll say again, I've used the Game Time app before. Why? Because I love the seat views that are available right in the app before you buy, so I know exactly where I'm going to be sitting. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And welcome back to Locked On Illini. You let me know in the comments section whether you think Ohio State is warranted being the number 3 overall highest ranked team in the Big Ten Conference. Is Illinois too low, too high? I know there's some pessimists out there, some Brad Underwood haters, so you let me know why Brad Underwood's going to fail this season. But JR, next up, I want to do kind of take a look at the rest of the conference. Again, it's very early. It's the offseason. I get it. But you know what? I think some of these teams are kind of conversation worthy. I talked about it in the last segment. I agree with Purdue, Michigan, UCLA, and Illinois being in the top 4. Granted, I put Illinois at number 2. But one team that I think is being overlooked, and maybe I think I'm just turning around on this coach, and that's Greg Gard. I think at this point, even I have to wave the white flag. I don't think he should be winning as many Coach of the Years as he's been winning when Brad Underwood hasn't gotten one of his own. But the bottom line is he is a good coach. And I think that the program that they have there is they just need the right pieces, and they just seemingly find those right pieces. Guys that you don't necessarily even hear about in the offseason. They go to Wisconsin, and Greg Gard coaches that group up, and they overperform. And quite honestly, I'm just not going to doubt them anymore. Right now, for me, as of right now, taking a look at the rankings, I think I have Wisconsin as my number 5 team in that conference.
I could see it for sure. Wisconsin under Greg Gard has really improved. Greg obviously had some hard times there with the fans. He also won one or two Big Ten Coach of the Year awards, I think it was. And people are very sorry. I don't mean to bring up Big Ten Coach of the Year awards. I know it's a touchy subject with the Illini. My bad. But
this will be the year.
Yeah, this will be the year. But Greg Gard has done a fantastic job, and he's really I was very skeptical last year when it sounded like they were going to go to this team that was shooting like 40 to 50% of their shots as 3-pointers. I was like, holy cow, what are we going to do here? And we saw in the first game that it didn't go all that well for them, and they adjusted in the second half. And I gave them credit when I saw them adjust in the second half. I thought, okay, maybe this isn't going to work exactly the way they thought it would, but that season it did work out pretty well for them. They finished very high in the Big Ten, and Greg Gard is looking like the type of coach who is going to be a mainstay in the Big Ten for a while, as long as he starts winning in the NCAA tournament. Still no Sweet 16s for Greg Gard in his career at Wisconsin. He needs to get over that threshold there, but that's not what we're talking about here, right? Big Ten title odds. Can he win the Big Ten title? I think it's going to be a little difficult with what kind of lineup they have. I like their lineup a lot, but I don't know if it's going to be able to sustain the Big Ten as a whole, right? You have you have Nick Boyd at the point guard position, somebody I love. I think he's going to be a fantastic addition for them. He's going to really release John Blackwell to not be able to not have to hold on to the ball so much and be that playmaker. Andrew Rohde can be a playmaker as well. He can be a dominant ball handler for you when Nick Boyd isn't in there, or maybe Nick Boyd needs to take some time off, whether he gets sick or something. I don't know. We saw crazy stuff happen last year in the Big Ten with that. I really love the addition of Austin Rapp. Their 4-man who hit, I believe, the most 3-pointers of any freshman last year in college basketball. If it wasn't the most, he was like top 3 or something like that. Fantastic shooter, and it plays it exactly into this Wisconsin team and their identity and who they want to be. The biggest test, Nolan Winter at the 5 position. Is he ready to be a dominant 5 in this league? And I don't even mean dominant as in he has to be the best player on the team. I just mean dominant that he can be serviceable on defense, that he can be a good, solid rebounder for your team, and he can also make teams, space the floor against teams. I believe he's going to be able to space the floor. I believe he's going to give you at least serviceable defense. I'm not expecting him to be the best defender of the world, but somebody who can go against the big men in the Big Ten and give them a really tough time. I'm not super sure on the rebounding. And the other hard part with that, I'm not super sure on the rebounding for Austin Rapp either. The sophomore, they're going to have some guys coming off the bench as well that I think are going to help him in some areas. But that starting lineup is really good. A few deficiencies here and there, but overall, I do like this Wisconsin team a lot, and I do think they have a chance to win the Big Ten.
Now, you mentioned when it comes to long shots, at least plus 4 figures, which Illinois was at 1,200. Wisconsin's at plus 2,000. Is there any other team out there that you may not think that you'd put a lot of pennies on it, but you might sprinkle one here or there, just it could happen type of scenario?
Yeah, a few teams that I do that with. Michigan State, right? They have Tom Izzo. I mean, you're always going to look at that with who they could be. Obviously, stinks for them that Caleb Glenn went down, but I almost feel like it's better for the Spartans that it happened now because Tom Izzo will try to adjust and figure something else out. I think Cohen Carr is going to be a dude. I think he's going to be fantastic, and he's going to be somebody that Michigan State is going to lean on this year. Iowa, we might see something with. They're going to have Bennett Sturtz, new head coach there. It's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts his game, his philosophy from being so much slow ball last year to coming into the Big Ten, where I don't think that's going to work. He's really going to have to adjust. Washington had a better offseason than some people anticipate. But the team I'm really looking at here, Sonny, and I know people are going to laugh because we've talked about how this team should do this time and time again. But they're 12th. I'm not telling you to put the house on them or anything like that, but I am saying it's pretty good money here. Indiana. Sonny, Indiana has tried the big man. They have tried to win with the front court. They had Malik Renew. They had Umar Ballo. Like, they tried. They're not trying that anymore. They've got Darren DeVries in there, and he has gone guard heavy. I think they're serviceable enough at the 5 and the 4. I don't think it's going to be anything spectacular, but I think they're serviceable enough there that they can win on guard play alone. It's been foreign to Indiana under Mike Woodson, so Indiana fans don't get shocked when your team comes out and starts playing good guard play, but I think this is going to be huge for them. Not predicting Indiana to win by any means, but I could definitely see the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, Indiana being in the top 4 of the conference and people saying, watch out for Indiana, kind of like Wisconsin last year, right? Wisconsin didn't have great odds. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're a team like Wisconsin that can come in and do something special.
Yeah, you named 2 of the teams that I actually had my eye on as well. We'll just continue talking about Indiana. I had Jacob Goins do a crossover episode with me last week where we did Locked On Illini and Locked On Hoosiers. And the story with Indiana obviously is like there's a lot of excitement with the brand new coach and their superstar player that they now have, but they're essentially doing what Illinois had to do a year ago, and that's replace an entire roster. And I just think replacing an entire roster when you're new to the Big Ten Conference, it's one thing watching game tape, but it's a completely different thing to understand what you need to play in this conference at the level that we play, having never done that before. So in theory, in your head, this system might work, but I want to wait and see how it actually works on the court. I think that he may have to make some pivots along the way. I don't doubt that he can have Indiana winning down the road. I don't think I'm very optimistic that it's going to happen next season. But the team I've got my eye on for the most part is Michigan State. They obviously surprised everyone last year. But for me, it's just Tom Izzo. 2 years ago, people were starting to count him out. 2 years ago, people were starting to wonder if his days were numbered, if the game had passed him by. Then they went out and won the Big Ten Conference last year. I want to see what he does as a follow-up. He is losing, some talent on this team, but Fears is coming back. So it could be one of those type of situations where can he reload? And that's what I'm just not sure on. Cohen Carr, obviously, is he ready to jump into being a superstar? Because that team, I think, is going to need one. But I talked about early on, like how I'm not going to doubt Greg Gard anymore. I should never doubt Tom Izzo, and I should, it's silly for me even to consider it. But I do want to see. I mean, right now they're listed as number 9 in the conference, right? And after winning the conference last year, dropping down to number 9 this year, I think would be a huge disappointment for Spartans fans. And I want to see what kind of team Tom Izzo can put on the floor this year.
Definitely. And I think we have to also recognize that they're bringing back this front court of Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper. These are not huge names, right? Nobody's looking at Carson Cooper and saying, like, this guy's going to dominate the league or anything like that. But like I've said with him before, he is a reliable defender. He is somebody who is going to get you some rebounds. He's not going to be the dominant rebounder, but Jackson Kohler, his step up in his game as a rebounder last year, I was projecting Jackson Kohler since high school as somebody who's going to be a good scorer in the Big Ten. He's probably not going to do all that much more for you, so he's probably never going to be like, a star player for Michigan State because Tom Izzo wants you to be able to do more than that. But I mean, all the credit to him. If Jackson Kohler, Cohen Carr, and Jeremy Fears Jr. can make the improvements that they need to make, this is a Michigan State team who will contend for the Big Ten next season. Jeremy Fears Jr. coming off of not playing his freshman year, obviously that horrible situation with him getting shot. So glad that he was able to come back and continue to play. Cohen Carr, his athleticism is going to be huge for them. And Jackson Kohler, if he just continues to elevate his game, if he's going to be able to step out of the paint and be able to shoot the ball a little bit, not just like 3-pointers, but like a more of a mid-range game and stuff like that, it's going to create more spacing for this team. Trey Fort, I think, is a good addition for him. And if Kurtang, the combo, well, I think he's more of a 2-guard than a combo guard. If he can come in and be a contributor for this team and give them some good solid minutes in the backcourt, I like this team to be able to make some noise in the Big Ten. I'm not sure I see him winning the Big Ten because I don't see that star player. I think Cohen Carr is going to be fantastic, but I don't see that star player like Jace Richardson was for him last year. I didn't think Michigan State was going to win the Big Ten until Jace Richardson started elevating to that level where you're like, this guy is an NBA player. He's a star player. He's the guy. Get the ball in his hands and he's going to make something happen. If they can find that, I like Michigan State a whole lot more. But without it, I think this is a solid top half of the Big Ten team with probably a floor of finishing ninth.
So just because you mentioned these two teams earlier, I'm curious. I'm going to say a sentence and you finish. I'm going to leave a blank at the end of the sentence and you finish it for me. The best new head coach in the Big Ten Conference is?
Oh my. Because I've seen it at this level, I'll say Buzz Williams. But I'm not confident in that. Best coach right now, Buzz Williams. He's done it at this level. The other two guys are from Drake, and no slouch to Drake or anything like that. Obviously, they've been churning out good head coaches. But because Buzz Williams has done it at this level, he's had the coaching staff. I think right now it's Buzz Williams, but I wouldn't be surprised if that changes in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's just hard to root. Yeah, for me, it's just hard to really root for Buzz Williams. He's just one of those guys. I'm so grateful that he's not coaching my basketball team. It seems every fan base he leaves is not necessarily sad. He never leaves gracefully. So it's just one of those situations where I think I'm going to go with I'll probably go with DeVries. I think that, you're right in the sense that it is Indiana. And at some point, they've got to get it right. They can't just keep whiffing. Indiana is still one of the premier programs in the conference. And, I talked to Jacob last week. I think I want to wait and see how they, incorporate bringing in almost 12 new players to the Big Ten Conference this year. But I really do think that he might be able to figure it out. But, JR, thanks for coming back on. If you don't mind, let the crowd know one more time where they can find your work.
Listen, if they can get it right in football, they can get it right in basketball, right?
Fair.
Am I right there? Okay. Sorry, I had to say that really fast. Yep, the Big Ten Huddle. Catch us over there. We have daily episodes on podcasts, YouTube. You can find us Sunday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night. Got really cool episodes on Thursday night with Big Jeff. He does a lot of analytics and data, and so he kind of comes on and gives all of his takes Thursday nights. This is all 9 p.m. Eastern time. Really cool stuff. Trying to bring you the best Big Ten coverage for every Big Ten team out there. If you are interested in my written content, you can find me over at Scarlet and Game. That's an Ohio State site, or writingillini.com, an Illinois site.
JR, appreciate having you on, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Sonny.
And welcome back to Locked On Illini. If you haven't already, make sure you've hit that like button and do me a favor. It's the off season. The downloads are getting slower. The views are getting less. Send this show and any other show that you might absolutely like to another Illini fan in your life, whether it's a friend or family member. It's my goal to hit 4,000 subs by the time we kick off for the football season, which, by the way, I will mention next month there's going to be college football. And more importantly, next month, we're going to have Illini football to watch. So it's my goal to get 4,000 subs on YouTube and continue to get my downloads up on the audio side. If any way you guys can help, I would sincerely appreciate it. I just want to say before I let you guys go today, I listened to John Rothstein's interview, and he mentioned Andrej Stojakovic being a wild card for this upcoming season, and basically citing that Andre was on a Stanford team where his coach got fired, and he was last year on a Cal team that just wasn't very good, and that now the spotlight was going to be on Stoyakovich to see if he can produce on a good basketball team, on what's perceived to be a very good program that Brad Underwood is building. And I just want to say that for the most part, I agree. I think it's something to monitor, but it's not something I'm really worried about. It's one thing if Stanford and Cal were historically very good basketball teams, and that once Stoyakovich came, all of a sudden they fell off. No, they're both just really bad basketball teams. And if anything, maybe I'm going to judge the Stoyakovich family's choices in their destinations of where they want to play basketball. I'm not sure. I mean, Stanford, obviously has its academics, and fair enough, so does Cal. But if you're talking about producing an NBA future for your child, I'm not sure Stanford and Cal are too high on the list. But I'll say I'm super grateful that eventually the Stoyakovich family went back to their relationship with Orlando Antigua, and Orlando Antigua came back to his relationship with Brad Underwood at Illinois, and now Stoyakovich is going to be, I think, one of the centerpieces for the Illini next season. I'm not going to put too much pressure on him, but I sincerely do think he can play a role very similar to what Marcus Damask played a couple of years ago. He may or may not be the sharpshooter that his father was. Stats don't prove it, but neither was Marcus Damask. Marcus wasn't a great three-point shooter, but he was a good facilitator, and I think Stojakovic brings a guy who can get to the rim and score at all three levels, and that's just something this team needed to replace so incredibly bad. We had Damask and Terrence Shannon Jr. do it 2 years ago. Last year was Will Riley and Kasper Jakishonis. I didn't know who that player was going to be on this year's team, and I do think that Andrej is the perfect player for that role, and the fact that he's going to be a junior player, I've said this before on the show, my everydayers know this. I think the ultimate downfall on last year's team was just relying so heavily on freshmen. And the way Will Riley and Kasper Jakishonis went, that's seemingly the way the Illini went. And you kind of saw that when the postseason hit and Kasperis couldn't really just turn things around from that injury he had earlier in the season. That's not going to be a problem next year. Tomislav is going to be 22 or 23 years old. Kylan Boswell is going to be senior in college basketball. Stojakovic is going to be a junior. You're going to be talking about a very veteran-laden team. And quite honestly, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Andrej brings to the Illini next season. It could only be for one season if things go well for everybody, but who knows? It could be 2 seasons. But again, I'm not going to doubt the pedigree. And looking back on Stanford and Cal, I don't think Stojakovic was the reason that they've lost, because they haven't always had a Stojakovic on their team. And yet, for the most part, those are not very successful programs. So you let me know in the comment section your thoughts on Stojakovic. Do you think he has anything to be blamed for the last 2 seasons? Are you as excited as I am for what he's going to contribute to the Illini next year? Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. For your second, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you all so much for joining me today. We got content for you all week long. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.